Money Block with your tech talk this afternoon. It is 3:30. We're an hour before the close, and it's been quite a day. We've talked a lot about what's been influencing this choppy, undecided market. We talked about oil and its impact. It was a drag earlier, and now we see that it is lifting up, or at least holding up the markets with the move in crude. We talked about the earnings. There's been some pretty solid earnings announcements. We're also talking about the fact that we continue to see the landscape as far as the economic promise going forward is looking positive. We've had some decent economic data come out. But one thing that we've been hitting on, but not really digging a little bit deeper, especially from a technical side, is the bond markets. And the movement today is quite something to watch, especially if you're taking a look at the 10-year here in the United States. We talked about it on and off over the last couple of days, but you have to remember, bond market action is going to be a good indicator of potential consequences for the stock market. And one thing that stock traders and investors love to see is a bond market that moves down slowly, unemotionally. And that's typically where you're starting to see then that bond money moving into either other securitized debt issues or into securities. And that's a positive, right? But when you see fast and emotional types of moves in the bonds, that is not what we would call a good buying opportunity. That's where red flags start coming up and you start to look at that price movement. Now, granted, we're taking a look at a 10-year. The 10-year has gone from 150, 160, hit 180 yesterday, so opened at 182 on the yield. That's 1.82%. Now, 2% on the 10-year, is that something that you're going to look at, and I'm watching it right now, is that something that's going to shock the investment world, shock the debt world? No. But the point that I'm pointing out here right now is that with looking at, for example, the TLT, the action that I saw, and that's the ETF that tracks both the 10-year and the 30-year. It's what we call a hybrid. It's like a 20-year bond. The TLT, if I looked at the weekly options right before we came on air, they were pricing in the potential movement of the stock this week to be plus or minus, and this is for the remainder of this week, being either up or down 88 cents. The move in TLT alone, right before I came on, and I'm looking at it right now, TLT is down $1.40. It's almost doubled what the expected move was anticipated for the next 2 days. In other words, until the close of business tomorrow. That's a huge move. And again, like I said, rates going up to 2% on the 10-year, it's not really a material impact, right? But when you see rates yields move that fast, that furious, or in other words, the price of these bonds come off, that's clearly a sign that something's going on and we really need to take note. This is also explaining, too, why we could be seeing some defensive trade. I had mentioned it earlier today in the midday about what was going on with the small caps. There could be some defensive trade in there, not only liquidating positions, but they could be adding some short futures hedges in the respectable futures markets. For example, I was taking a look at the NASDAQ futures and taking a look at the D's futures. They're down about $26, and it clearly looks like there are some potential hedging going on in the NASDAQ utilizing the futures, especially when we got large cap tech names that are going to be announcing after the close. We have Amazon and we have Google. Now, Amazon, as I had noted earlier today, is pricing in the potential for the stock. Earlier today, it was pricing in a potential plus or minus move over the next day of being either up or down $45. The options now have expanded even more. So vol's expanding in there before the announcement on Amazon. This stock is pricing, the options are pricing the stock to move maybe between up 45 or down 45. That's a pretty significant move, and I know Amazon's an expensive stock. Also, Alphabet, Google, they're announcing earnings. Right now, the options, the weekly options that are expiring tomorrow, are pricing in the stock potentially move in a range of either up 38 or down 38. Again, another significant potential move here. And if you see that the NASDAQ futures, which have been dragging down large cap tech and the tech sector in general, as well as the overall market, if you start to see that there's more pressure to the downside on those futures, it could be either hedging in anticipation of something coming out after hours, or you could see that there are shorts are starting to garner some interest here. We'll have to wait and see until after the close. But technically right now, the market is at a critical tipping point, at least in the short term. Could be some hedging, but we're going to watch those numbers at the close. And as a matter of fact, if you want to join us at 4:30 Eastern time, we're going to be going over the closing bell. So why don't you join us then? Till then, have a great rest of the trading day, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.